8th graders, today's lesson is called The Tortoise and the Hare. This is going to be a little velocity graphing assignment. So the other day you guys should have completed the 1.1 force and motion assessment. So that means we are starting our new unit, which is force and motion. And one concept that we talk a lot about in this unit is velocity. So this assignment is meant to give you guys a little background on what velocity is. For the most part, you guys think of velocity as speed, and you guys have all ridden in the car and know that we measure speed in miles per hour. Well, velocity can be a lot of things, and there is some differences between velocity and speed that we'll address in the unit. But for right now, we're just going to assume kind of that velocity and speed are very close to the same thing. Okay, with that being said, your learning targets for today, I can use time and distance to graph the velocity of an object. One thing that's missing out of our formula for velocity is a direction. So that's really important, and I want you guys to keep that in mind as we move forward. Okay, moving on to slide 2. Remember that at any point during this video, you guys need to stop and do something. Make sure you pause this video and then move forward. Okay, on slide 2, you guys have a video you need to watch. So go ahead, right-click, and open up that link. It's going to take you guys into YouTube, and you guys are going to watch this 8-minute video to recap your memory on what the tortoise and the hare is and what that fable looked like. Okay, so the moral of this story at the end of this is going to be the slow and steady wins the race, and you guys are going to see that throughout this lesson. So go ahead, pause this video, watch the Silly Symphony Tortoise and the Hare video, and then when you guys are done, come on back to this video and we'll move forward. All right, so you guys should have just watched the Tortoise and the Hare, and now that you guys are refreshed on that fable, we're going to go ahead and move forward to slide 3. So extra, read all about it. You guys have this little read link right here. This is mandatory that you read this. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click it, and it's going to bring me into this little article right here. That's pretty small to see. You guys can either click on the magnifying glass or you guys can double-click to zoom in. Okay, I'm going to go through this here in a second and read this with you, but for right now, I just kind of want to point out that this is a little newspaper article. Okay, the first section of this newspaper article is called, or the first article maybe, is Tortoise Wins by a Hare. So this is going to give you guys all the information you guys need to know about what the tortoise's race looked like. Okay, Slow and Steady Wins the Race is going to be written by Barney the Bear, and it's going to kind of be all about why the tortoise beat the hare. So you guys are going to get a lot of information about why the hare did not win, which is going to be your key information to help you guys graph the time and distance traveled by old Hare, Mr. Hare there. And then the last one's just for fun. You guys can read that if you want. All right, moving on, let's take a look at what you guys are going to be doing, and then we'll get into some specifics, and I'll do some examples for you guys. So you guys are going to be graphing this information, and here are your instructions to graph. So what you need to know is that time is on the x-axis and distance is on the y-axis. So if we take a look at our graph on the next page, you guys can see our time is in hours, and that goes across the bottom. Our race took us about 12 hours. You guys are going to see that again in our news articles that we're going to visit here in a second. Okay, our distance is on the y-axis, and it's going to be measured in miles. And you guys are going to see in those news articles that the tortoise and the hare had a 6-mile race. So the highest you'll be graphing on this y-axis is going to be 6 miles right here. Okay, all right, moving on. Instruction number 2, read through the article about the race between the tortoise and the hare, and then use the draw tool to graph this information on slide 5. So you guys are going to graph 2 different lines. You're going to graph a line for the tortoise and a line for the hare, as they both had different journeys on their 6-mile race. Okay, so the tortoise is going to be graphed in green using information about the distances he traveled over various time frames. Connect the data points, so you guys are going to have a line for him, and it may or may not be a straight line. And then graph the hare in blue using information about the distances he traveled over various time frames. You guys will see that the hare had quite the different journey than the tortoise did. And then you guys are going to connect his data points as well, and then you're going to be able to compare the 2 lines to answer the questions on slides 6 through 9. Okay, let's go ahead and we're going to do some of the tortoise together, and then I'm going to start you guys on the hare. So let's go back to our article. What we need to know is that we're going to be graphing the tortoise in green using information about the distances he traveled that we're going to get out of this article. So the main thing we're going to see is the tortoise wins by a hare. So this is written by Penny the Pig, which is irrelevant for this. But Tortoise beat Hare to the finish line after 12 grueling hours of racing. The red flag course twisted and turned for 6 miles from start to finish. The Tortoise finished the race in 12 hours exactly, while the Hare finished the race in 12.003 hours. All right, so if we go back to our graphing, okay, the first data point that we can kind of get out of this information is, first of all, the Tortoise, who's going to be our green racer. They both ran 6 miles. Tortoise, we know, though, finished his 6 miles in exactly 12, I'm going to make my pen thicker here, in exactly 12 hours. Okay, so that's going to be my data point for the final part of the race for the Tortoise. Hare, on the other hand, he went 12.03, so he still ran 6 miles, but he did his slightly slower than Hare, so I'm going to put his dot after. So we know that the Tortoise obviously won the race, so he was the first to make it to 6 miles, and he did his in exactly 12 hours, okay? The Hare, on the other hand, ran his 6 miles slightly after 12, so I did a little dot after the 12 here. Okay, so that's one piece of information we get out of the first article. Okay, when asked what made the difference, Tortoise said, "It was the support of my friends, especially Rooster, Raccoon, and Frog." Tortoise was able to more than double the speed of an average giant tortoise, which is 0.2 miles per hour, and ran at a constant rate of 0.5 miles per hour. That means he ran the race every half a mile in 1 hour. So every hour he ran a half a mile, so 0.5 miles per hour. He was a constant speed. So I want you to think about this question. What should his line look like? He ran at a constant speed, so he ran for 12 hours and he completed his race in his 6 mile race in 12 hours, and he ran 0.5 miles per hour. So for every hour he ran 0.5 miles. So let's take a look at what his graph would look like. So again, he's our green color right here. So here is our first hour right here. In that first hour, he ran a half a mile. Okay, from hour 1 to 2, he also ran a half mile. So he ran from 0.5 to 1 mile. Okay, from hours 2 to 3, he ran another half a mile. So he was at about 1.5 right over here. Okay, and then from time 3 to 4, so hour 3 to 4, he ran another half a mile. So he ran from 0.5 to 2 miles. Okay, then from hour 4 to 5, he ran another half a mile. So he ran from 2 miles to 2.5 miles. Okay, and then from hour 5 to 6, he ran from 2.5 miles to 3 miles. Okay, and then from hour 6 to 7, he ran from 3 miles to 3.5 miles. Okay, from hour 7 to 8, he ran another half a mile, so 3.5 to 4. Okay, and so on and so forth. So from 8 to 9, he ran another half. From 9 to 10, he ran another half. Each line is a half a mile. From 10 to 11, he ran another half. And then finally, you can see that in the last hour from 11 to 12, he ran his last half a mile from 5.5 to finish the race at 6. Okay, with that being said, you can see what a constant rate of velocity looks like for the Tortoise. Okay, so you're going to go to Insert. We're going to go ahead and connect those dots. You can either freehand them, but it's not going to look that great if you freehand it, or you guys can go to Insert. You can go into Shapes, and you can choose a line. Okay, that line is going to, oh, shoot, sorry, let me delete that. That line is going to connect us. So I'll go back to my cursor. Is going to connect us from our start of the race, which started at 0, to our end of our race, which started at 6 miles in 12 hours. Okay, I can also kind of mess around with that shape, changing the color and the thickness. So I obviously want it to be a green in color, and I can make that line a little thicker if I go to weight as well. Okay, so those are a couple options for you guys, but you guys can see what a constant rate of motion looks like. Okay, the Hare, on the other hand, did not run a constant rate of motion. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my draw tool, and I'm going to choose my blue color, and then we're going to go read about what the Tortoise did. Okay, what the Hare did. So let me tell you why Hare lost. So this is written by Barney the Bear. He ran the 2 miles to my house in exactly 1 hour. So we know he ran the first 2 miles. So here's his distance right here in 1 hour. So this is his first data point. Again, 2 miles in 1 hour. But then he stayed at Barney the bear's house. So what was his velocity? Okay, his velocity would be 0 because he wasn't moving from Barney the bear's house. Okay, so he ran exactly 2 miles to my house in 1 hour and then stopped to have lemonade with me. I saw Tortoise coming, so Hare took off. So let's take a look. If he was here and ran this far in that first hour, it was at the point where he saw Tortoise coming. So he stayed there until the Tortoise started coming. Okay, so this is kind of going to be where those 2 lines intersect. Okay, so when when Tortoise finally caught up and was almost at 2 miles to Barney the bear's house, okay, when we saw the Tortoise get to his 2 mile point, that's when the Hare started moving again. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at the article and say, all right, Mouse told me he ran the mile to his house in an hour, so the next one's going to be a mile in an hour. So you guys are going to graph his next movement, a mile in an hour. And then he stayed for an hour snacking on cheese. So his velocity would be 0 where he stayed for an hour snacking on cheese. So what you guys are going to do is I've graphed out the first, looks like 2 miles for him, okay, in the first 4 hours. So he ran basically 2 miles in 4 hours, even though he really ran that 2 miles in 1 hour. He stayed there for 4 hours. So you guys are going to finish this next episode. Okay, so we know that, you know, from your Silly Symphony video is that the Hare was in the lead most of the race, okay? When he'd see the Hare or the Tortoise coming, he'd start running again. He'd run, take a little nap, whatever the case is, okay? Flirt with the ladies, whatever. Okay, so whichever line is on top of this graph is going to be who's winning the race because they're going to be the ones who have traveled the furthest distance in the quickest amount of time. So what you guys will see is for most of the race, the Hare is in the lead, okay? His line is going to be on top of the Tortoise's line, okay? It's not going to be constant because he's starting and stopping and running and resting a lot throughout this, okay? So let's take a look at our question. So obviously you're going to finish graphing the blue line. He's going to end right here in this last little data point that we wrote, okay? So what does the rest of his line look like? All right, so what time on the graph did the Tortoise take the lead for the first time? So that's going to be the point where the green line for your Tortoise is going to be above the Hare's blue line. That's going to be where the Tortoise finally started traveling further in less time than the Hare was. Okay, what was the constant speed of the Tortoise throughout the whole race? This comes right out of your article, but if we're looking at his constant speed, if we're looking at miles per hour, what was his constant rate? Okay, how much did he cover every hour? Okay, question 3, why does the line for the Hare have 3 flat spots? So we've already kind of graphed 1 flat spot. Why is this flat right here? Okay, question 4, what was the average speed or the rate of the Hare during the first hour of the race? So if we just look at his first hour, looks like he ran 2 miles in 1 hour. So what's his speed? Okay, we measure speed for what you guys know in miles per hour for right now. It's going to look a little bit different for velocity. Question 5. How about his average speed from Bear's house to Mouse's house? So again, that's something we haven't graphed yet. That's something you need to graph. So go tell me what his average speed is from Bear's house to Mouse's house. How about his average speed from Mouse's house to the pond? So those are going to be variable speeds because he didn't run a constant rate. He has different speeds throughout this race. Okay, what was Hare's average speed from the beginning of the race to the end of the race? So I want you guys to really think about this. Obviously, he ran 6 miles, but he didn't do it in 12 hours like the Hares. So if you guys could write a formula to calculate that, okay, what would it be? And then what would your answer be right here? It shouldn't be a whole number, okay? All right, and then finally do your wrap up. Any questions, circle yes or no. If yes, type them below. And then 4, 3, 2, 1, how do you think you did on this assignment? You were all done. Please make sure you guys have all the questions answered and that you guys have graphed both the green line and the blue line completely for all 6 miles of that race for both the Tortoise and the Hare. And I hope you guys are having a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.